Hey there, sixth grade. How are you? Today we're going to analyze the role of the church in medieval Europe. Let's get right into it. The phrase Christendom is a phrase that is used quite a bit during the Middle Ages. Christendom means the area that is dominated by the faith of Christianity. Um, During medieval Europe, this meant Europe. Uh, but as you can see, Christianity had become the dominant religion in areas of the Middle East and Northern Africa, where it's no longer the main religion that's practiced. This area of Christendom, the land of the Christians, is going to be real important later on in justifying things like the Crusades. Um, Rome and Constantinople, Rome, woo, and Italy was the center of the Roman Empire, you might remember, and Constantinople, which will be the center of the Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire, are going to become the two main centers of the Christian faith in the Middle Ages, and we're going to see that the leadership in both of these places, in Rome and Constantinople, are often going to have a lot of friction with one another, and eventually is going to lead to a splitting of the Christian church. Let's look at the western part first. And the Western Christian Church will come to be known as the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church has its roots in the idea that the church was founded by one of the apostles of Jesus of Nazareth, a guy by the name of Peter. And Peter is seen as the first bishop of Rome. Well, the Bishop of Rome eventually will assume the title by the year 500 of the Pope. And that is what we call the leader of the Catholic Church today. In fact, Pope Francis is the leader or the Bishop of Rome. He is the Pope. The Bishop of Rome, or the Pope, feel that they have the rightful claim over the Christian church since they derive their power. They are in that line with Peter, who was they believe was given the keys to the kingdom, the keys to the church by Christ to establish it. And we're going to see that interpretation of Christianity, that the Pope is chosen by God, is the vicar of Christ, is essentially the eyes and ears of God on earth, is infallible. That branch of Christianity is, again, the Catholic Church. In the East, centered in Constantinople, around the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire, we're going to see that there is another bishop, and the bishop in Constantinople, in a lot is in a lot of ways the second in power to the Pope in Christendom, and eventually will be the leader overall of the Eastern branch of Christianity, which will become its own church, the Eastern Orthodox Church. Orthodox is a phrase that means a strict interpretation of a faith. Although we're going to see that necessarily there's going to be a lot of differences between the Orthodox and the Catholic faith. The leadership of the Orthodox faith in the East is known as the Patriarch. Patriarch, as its roots, sounds like a term that means father. If you think, many priests are referred to as father, and this comes from that idea of the leadership being a father of the congregation, the patriarch, the father of fathers, so to speak. Christianity is going to spread in the west and east of Europe through a group of people called missionaries. They feel it is their mission in life to spread the gospel, to spread the faith. And in Europe, many of the people that are missionaries, both in the Catholic and the Orthodox side, are monks. Monks are people who take a pledge, vows in their life to forego many different things in the devotion to the church and the devotion to Christianity, devotion to Christ, in order to excel in devoting your life to the faith. there's many different vows that monks can take. Some often will take a vow of poverty, never own actual property, will devote themselves to living communally and sharing items with other monks, often in a place called a monastery. There are some that take vows of silence, never speak again. Many of them took vows to maintain books and records, to maintain the education and all the advancements in a lot of ways from Greece and Rome. Much of what we know from those time periods are because of the records kept by monks. Because remember, most people were illiterate, and most books had to be handwritten at this time period, and most of that's done by monks. But there's even a branch of monks that are a military branch, and they devote their life to defending the faith through war. We'll talk more about them with the Crusades. In the West, the Pope really is going to expand his power more and more and more as the center of governmental authority in the West. Even though there's many different kings in England and France and Spain and other kingdoms within powers of Europe, none of them have the right to rule unless they are officially crowned by the Pope. That the Pope, the Vicar of Christ, God, is choosing this person to rule over the people. So giving the church the authority to choose who can rule gives the church essentially the power to rule. You can't rule unless I give you permission to. And we're going to see that there was some times where the church, the people in the West, tried to push back and have some say in naming people in the church, but no, they solidify that secular authority, governmental authority, has no role in running who are bishops, who's the leadership of the church. So not only does the church name its own leadership, but it names the leaders of the government. That's a big deal. That's why the church has so much governmental authority in Western Europe. And this leaves the kings, the nobles, and all the other non-religious power players in Europe to try to gain favor with the Pope, gain favor with the church. The more you're keeping the church happy, the more power the church will allow you to have. And that's why we see that many governmental authorities will take the note from Charlemagne and take a lot of their money and resources into the building of massive cathedrals to basically get support of the church. And there's other aspects of government. For example, courts are going to be primarily run through the church, through religious governing authority, not really as much through the secular leadership, with the exception being England, where we see with the Magna Carta and so on and so forth. The churches running the courts is going to be a big part of something called the Inquisition, which will come later on in the Middle Ages. Well, the East and the West become more and more aggressive towards one another. They're just not seeing eye to eye. And a large part of this is, on one end, you have the Pope in the West who controls the government, but in the East, it's the opposite. The Emperor chooses the Patriarch, the Bishop. The Emperor essentially has the authority over the church. The government controls the church, whereas in the West, the church controlled the government. So the Orthodox, the Eastern side, starts seeing it as more and more of a separate entity and sees the Pope and the Western Church as a threat to its authority, in particular for the Byzantine Emperor, because they don't want the church to choose who can rule them. So, and we're going to see that there are going to be a number of beliefs that start to develop in the Orthodox churches that definitely contrast Rome. One, that the Pope isn't infallible. In the Catholic faith, the Pope is the Vicar of Christ. So if Christ chose the Pope to rule the church, they have to be infallible. They have to be perfect. Whereas in the Orthodox Church, nobody is perfect, even the patriarch or leadership of the faith. Two, we're going to see that as both faiths start to evolve a bit more, the Orthodox faith will allow its clergy to marry, whereas the Catholic faith does not. There's other concepts of the faith that they have differences of opinion on, things like the Immaculate Conception and other views on the Holy Spirit. I'm not going to get into all that. That's a bit deep, but they're both still Christian faiths. They just have different interpretations. And this is where we're going to see Christianity split into two sects. Eventually, Christianity is going to be split with the Protestant Reformation into many different competing sects. But this idea, this schism, this split of the church into two entities, into the Roman Catholic Church in the West, Eastern Orthodox Church in the East, is going to happen officially in the year 1054. And we're going to see that missionaries will continue to spread each of their competing views west and east. Eastern Orthodox Christianity we can see practiced in Greece, parts of the Mideast, and namely Russia, where it's probably the largest nation that still practices majority Orthodox Christianity. We're going to see that also parts of Africa, the Egyptian Coptic faith has its roots with the Orthodox Church as well. Christianity, since it will dominate the West, when Western Europeans start to colonize, will spread that faith, the Roman Catholic faith, throughout much of the Western Hemisphere, which is why the Roman Catholic Church is the most widely followed religion in the world today. So, my question for you is, what role did the church play in the government of Western Europe during the Middle Ages? I can't wait to read your answers. Have a fantastic Monday. Bye-bye.